Mainstream media outlets are falsely implying that China's record-breaking swimming team at this year's Olympic Games are guilty of doping. They're burying the fact that they're really referring to a years-old case in which Chinese swimmers were eventually found not guilty anyway. At the exact same time, and more egregiously, the same mainstream media outlets are forgetting to mention cases in which swimmers from Australia and elsewhere did test positive for doping. I'll show you those cases. Now, in those cases, the swimmers were not cleared by the authorities, but their stories have been quietly forgotten anyway. Now, many people, Chinese and non-Chinese, are worried that this awkward situation indicates a worrying level of bias or even racism. But I'm going to give you the facts and let you decide. Now, this debate is happening right now. AP, one of the biggest news agencies in the world, today printed this story. Olympic swimmers spoke out about the Chinese doping scandal that has hung over these Paris Olympics as the events finished Sunday night. Now think about that. It refers to the Chinese doping scandal that has hung over these Paris Olympics. It was a follow-up to this AP story. Another Chinese Olympic swimming medalist linked to doping scandal denies any wrongdoing. Now note the present tense. The Chinese swimmer denies any wrongdoing. If you just read the headlines or the opening sentences of these reports, it very much sounds like the Chinese swimmers tested positive for doping this week at these games, right? But that's not the case. They were all tested and cleared. The Times printed a similar story also today. No point winning if you're not winning fair. PT questions China's relay victory. Again, the story is about these Olympics now running. And the UK Guardian printed this. Adam Peaty says he may retire and hits out at cheating Chinese swimmers. Guardian reporter Andy Bull, like other reporters, has behaved rather sneakily in my opinion. He wrote that 2 Chinese swimmers were allowed to compete at these games even after it emerged they had previously tested positive for trace amounts of banned performance enhancing drugs. But he forgets to tell readers of this article several things. First, he doesn't say that the accusation of doping to which he's referring happened 3 years ago. Not at these Olympics 3 years ago. Nor does he make it clear that the swimmers were cleared by doping inspectors. Second, he doesn't say that these Chinese swimmers at these Olympics were tested multiple times and did not test positive for such drugs even once. They're clearly clean of drug taking. But third, and most egregiously, Andy Ball doesn't say that other swimmers from other countries have also tested positive for doping, and those ones weren't cleared. And I'm going to show you. Now, I'm using Andy Ball as an example, but the same applies to every article on this topic I've seen in the Western mainstream media. Fact, right? The Chinese swimmers at the Paris Olympics did not test positive for drugs on a single test, and they were tested more than any other team. So the reporters have had to dig into cases from years ago to find an example, and it turns out to be one in which the Chinese team was eventually cleared. The reporters chose not to mention this case from India, even though it happened just last year, and the athlete did test positive. Or this case involving a banned Australian swimmer who did test positive and whose legal struggle came to an end just 2 years ago. Also not mentioned. Nor was this case mentioned in which an Irish swimmer did test positive and was banned. Or this rather curious case about a British athlete also from last year. Now, before he died, the late great journalist John Pilger said that the excessive demonisation of the Chinese in the Western media was rooted in racism. When he first said that, I disagreed with him, but now I'm having second thoughts. Chinese swimmers found not guilty 3 years ago, and that case is assumed to taint today's swimmers who passed all the doping tests. But non-Chinese swimmers who were found guilty of doping, those cases quietly forgotten and not brought up to imply anything about their counterparts today. You know, I can certainly understand why people worry about there being an element of racism in this. I mean, well, what do you think? Big sports meetings like the Olympics are supposed to bring nations together and surmount all the things that divide us. We need to let that happen. So, reporters, behave yourselves. And swimmers, enough with the sour grapes already. Let's all just sit back and enjoy the rest of the games. That's what I'm going to do anyway. Cheers.